So my guest is Esther Chilton,
Yes.
famous author, somebody that we know well and we're introducing to the rest of the world. Esther, you're a published author, you're a professional writer, you're a writing tutor. You are the one, so far as I know, who's managed to turn writing into a career rather than a side hustle like some of the rest of us. Tell us more about what is the writing that you do.
Yes, Steve, I do all sorts of writing, really. I do a lot of editing, so I help people with their manuscripts. It might be a novel, a memoir, a non-fiction book, so I help them with developmental edits, proofreading, all sorts of different aspects that they would like, or writing synopsis, covering letter, all sorts of things, so I do a lot of that. I'm also tutor for the Writers' Bureau, and that involves writing courses for them, teaching Zoom courses for them, marking assignments, all sorts of things there. I do their blog posts for them, so there's quite a lot that I'm involved with there. I also do my own writing, so I've written books, short story collections, I'm doing some workbooks on short stories, non-fiction, novel writing, all sorts of aspects, and getting published as well. And I've just written a children's series that's coming out this year. And I do lots of article writing about all sorts of historical places, places of interest, the natural world. I've written poetry, all sorts of different types of writing, and I really sort of relish the challenge of trying new things.
And I believe you've even written a book on how to get published, is that right?
Yes, that's right. I just, years ago, I started out really wanting to be a writer, but not knowing too much about it. So I studied it hard, did courses, and just really learnt my craft. And I just thought, if I can do it, anybody can. And so it's just really the sort of path I'd followed, and how to help writers to do that.
Fantastic. So do you have a single piece of advice for people who are aspiring authors? What is the first step on the journey for them?
The importance that I've learned over time is, if you want to be a published writer, you really need to do your market research. And that involves really looking at magazines and going in depth. The more you know about the magazine, the readers, who you're writing for, and really read the articles, the stories, so that you get a feel for what the editors are looking for, really. And you can emulate that in your writing. So market research is crucial, whatever you're writing.
Whereas a lot of us authors just like to write what we care about or know about, and we don't find readers because we didn't do the research.
No, that's it. I mean, it's more, I've done competition writing as well, and I've been a competition judge myself. And there's more scope to write what you want to write and to experiment in the competition world. So if you want to do that, that's what I suggest you go for. Otherwise, the market research is really important.
But you are living proof that it is possible to be a fully paid professional writer and make a living out of it.
Yes, that's it. It is, sort of full time. It's doing various different bits of writing. Because the average earnings for a novelist, for example, are £7,000, making an earning, per year. And that's really not a lot to live on. So it is hard unless you're, very well established, you're with one of the big 5 publishing houses. So that's why, I love writing books, but that's why I do lots of different aspects of writing. But I do enjoy that as well. The little sort of pockets of writing is very interesting.
Do you have a particular interest? You mentioned historical buildings. I think you write about castles and stately homes from time to time. Is that a particular interest?
It is. I've always loved history, and I found it fascinating just going to these places and just imagining myself back in the time. It's really interesting. And I do also enjoy sort of interviewing the curators, the managers there, just finding out more about it, and also the little known stories. They can be really interesting as well. So yes, I do really enjoy that type of writing.
I know over the years you've had some health challenges, although to look at you today you'd barely think that there's ever anything wrong, but I know some of the conditions have been a little bit on the chronic side. How has that impacted your writing? And in fact, has writing been part of the coping mechanism?
It has. I mean, before I started to write, I worked in a bank, which I hated. Really didn't like it. But my dad always said to me, it's a good job, it pays the bills. So I went down that path, and then I had an injury, and I couldn't, do the job anymore. And so while I was recovering, basically all I could do was lie on the bed, propped up by pillows, and I'd seen an advert for the Writers' Bureau in a paper, and I thought, is this too good to be true? You earned your course fees back if you weren't published.
Yes.
And I thought, I've got nothing to lose, and that started me on the path, and it sort of saved me really, and has led to this great career that I really enjoy. And it is a challenge. I do find, I've got, for example, at home, I've got an ergonomic chair, I've got a footrest, I've got a stand for my laptop, so I have to have all the equipment, and I can't stay writing, for long. I have to keep moving around. So I have to take that into account, as well. There is that aspect, but because I sort of work it's all on a self-employed basis, even with the Writers' Bureau, I sort of bill them, so I can manage myself, and so I can manage my time when I do it, so that does really help.
And I believe you have students from all over the world.
Yes, I do. Yes, they come from India, they come from the USA, all around Europe, from everywhere, and it's very interesting the lives you get an insight into as well.
Yes, yeah.
So yes.
I think writing is a strangely it's you're bringing some of yourself, whatever it is you're writing. There is something deep from inside that comes out, isn't there?
There is.
Whoever you are, whatever you are.
Yes, that's it. And a lot of them have shared, the sort of stories, and it's fascinating. In some heartbreaking, some humorous, some all sorts of ways. Really, very interesting.
And you kindly agreed to join us as one of the directors of the Society of Environmental Authors and Journalists. I know environmental issues overlap a lot with what you're doing, but would you like to just say a little bit about that?
Yes, and it's something I do feel, passionately about, and it's something I want to get involved into a lot more. I think one of the things for me as well is I've learnt a lot more as I've gone on about the environmental impact of the food we eat, and it has sort of led to me being a vegan. And I'm sort of passionate about the animal side, but also the damage that sort of farming does. I know it's sort of essential, but there's a lot of damage as well. So I've been learning more about that, and just about all the building we're doing, the destruction of our environment. So I do feel passionately about that, and really sort of relishing that aspect and doing more about it and the learning.
And this is an interesting location, isn't it? We're here in North Nottinghamshire, in the northern part of England, and barely a mile or so we've got lots of lakes, the Idle Valley Nature Reserve, but we've also got farmers' fields turning into solar farms.
Yes.
We've got mining, aggregate extraction activities and commercial activities. We've got housing estate. That is government policy now to turn fields into housing estates.
Yes.
So we're right in amongst all of that, aren't we?
That's right. It is. It's you've got that sort of juxtaposition, and it's hard to see. On the one hand, the beauty, and just a short, just down the road from here. My partner and I often go to Daneshill, and we enjoy sort of walking around. But again, and like you say with Idle Valley, it's not far before you find all the sort of destruction and the things that they're doing, which is heartbreaking to see. It really is. Yes.
Well, I think probably like many of us, you find writing is a good coping mechanism for that.
Yes,
your concerns, our concerns about the environment and the state of the planet. Writing, certainly for me, is one of the ways that I handle that as well, and I'm sure that's the same for you.
It is, yes, and also hoping to help more people become informed, about it as well.
And that's why we like to share our stories, obviously. So what are you working on right now? Is there anything new in the pipeline?
I'm working on the children's book, and that's coming up. So there's a lot sort of going on with that, but also a new workbook on novel writing. So I'm working on that. I've also been working on an article for a writing magazine. It's just about how, again, the writing world is changing and the markets for writers.
Yeah.
So I'm writing about the different platforms. So again, that's sort of been challenging for me to look at and learn more about it.
Do you have a take on AI, artificial intelligence, at this point, or is that still an emerging proposition? Yes,
it's something I'm not fond of, I have to admit. There are good aspects to it and bad, and I think it has its place. I'm not fond of it in the use of writing, because for me, writing is about, it's coming from me, whereas I do know people who just use it to write everything they do. And that's fine, for example, in the work of, the field of business, and where people sort of struggle, it's a great tool for that. But if you're sort of writing a book or a story, where is the pleasure then in using AI? So that's sort of my take, but I can see it does help people and have its place. But I think you also need to be wary of it, because, for example, if you're using it as a research tool, and I do know writers who do, it's not always right. It does make things up. It's made up research papers that don't exist.
Wow.
And it's fascinating. One of my fellow writers, he used it to actually edit his novel, and he said it was quite interesting because it got a lot right, but also it got a lot wrong. It actually couldn't pick up the foreshadowing he was doing. So it is sort of interesting, and it got sort of characters wrong, and there are all sorts of things, but it is interesting. But I can see that it's going to advance. It's something that we have to work with and learn how to do that as well.
I think that's inevitable. But amongst author circles, there are big concerns about copyright, which is not provided for, because they, as I believe, they train the AI algorithms, the programming behind it, by reading all of our books without our permission.
They do. There's been a big thing that's come out in the last week about it, and you can actually look up now and see if it's used your work. And there are lots of writers, well-known writers, and it's used theirs without permission. But unfortunately, the government aren't concerned, they sort of bend the rules to fit them, really. So it's hard for authors when it's not a highly paid job,
quite.
That's it.
It's a passion and a mission.
Yes.
And not for everybody that manages to make a living out of it, like you.
No, that's it. And it's, I think, again, why I do lots of different streams to it.
Yeah, that's another good tip, isn't it?
That's right. It is. I think, again, there are a lot of writers who would love to become published authors and make a good living from it, but it is not easy to do. But again, if you're passionate about it, then you can. You never know, it can lead.
Exactly,
that's really the case. I know one of my students, he actually comes from Pakistan, and he had two UK Big Five fighting for him, and it's brilliant to see. So anything is possible. You never know.
Fantastic. So if people wanted to get hold of your books, where would they find them?
The usual Amazon, you can find them there.
Search for Esther Chilton, author.
Yes, that's it. It's the easiest place to find them, really.
Very good. Esther, thanks so much.
I think thank you very much, Steve.
Hopefully we're going to energise a new generation of writers. So
yes.
Wouldn't that be great?
It would, certainly. Thank you very much, Steve.